Welcome to the Living Centred podcast, a podcast all about learning together how to live lives which are centred on Jesus. Everyone lives centred on something. Our goal is to learn together how every area of our lives, everything about who we are and how we live, can be increasingly oriented around Jesus and transformed by Jesus. He invites us to a rich and satisfying life, where the good news that he truly is enough changes everything about how we relate to God, ourselves, and the world. In each episode, a different person shares about what it's looking like for them to seek to centre their life on Jesus right now. As we hear their stories, we get to learn together and to encourage one another in what it means for Jesus to be at the centre of our lives. This is a journey we are all invited to, and a conversation we all get to be a part of. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, my name is Adrian, and it is so good to welcome you to this week's episode of the Living Centred podcast. And it's my privilege to introduce today Ben, who's going to be sharing. Ben, it is very, very good to see you.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Good. Well, I wonder if we could start by just easing you in, by just getting you to tell us a little bit about who you are and what your life looks like at this point in time.
Yeah, thanks. So I'm Ben. I'm blessed to be married to an incredible and very beautiful woman called Lizzie. We have two brilliant boys who are 10 and 5, nearly 6. I grew up in London. Most of my family are still based in London, but I've been in Birmingham since 2008 and part of Oasis since that same amount of time.
Amazing.
For a job, I basically write funding applications to grow up making trusts and foundations. And I work 3 days a week doing that for a charity based in London. 1 day a week I have the joy of working at Oasis, and I really enjoy doing the same sort of thing. I like spending time with friends in the context of going to gigs, music gigs, particularly the Hare and Hounds, which is a local venue to me. And I've also recently started a songwriters group, which I'm really enjoying. Other things, just things like football podcasts, reading books, as well as being a dad to my 2 boys. Also a carer for my oldest son, who has quite profound learning disabilities, which shapes our family life in ways and to degrees that it's quite hard to convey. And I'm also increasingly aware of my own kind of neurodiversity within that journey as well, and how that shapes my experience and interaction with everyday life. So yeah, that's a bit of a snapshot of me.
Oh man, that is a good snapshot, Ben. I think just immediately I see the breadth of what your life looks like. And also just, I guess what strikes me is some of the complexities that you're living with, but also just within that causes you to live with a great sense of reality of just, okay, this is the world I'm in, and how that then causes you to reflect on yourself within that. I
absolutely.
think, really, really helpful. I guess then to kind of jump to the big question, which is then within the beauty and wonder of your life, what does living centered on Jesus look like for you right now?
Cool. Oh, thanks for asking the question. It's helpful. I think for me, living centered on Jesus looks like trying to be attentive to reminders of God's faithfulness. That's a challenge, I think, for me. I think life can feel quite disjointed, as you've just alluded to. I think going from a sort of worker mode to dad mode to carer mode to occasionally husband mode or friend mode, there's a lot going on. I think I live with a fairly sort of constant hum of like low level anxiety, which can kind of spill over occasionally to slightly more like But I think within that, just trying to learn how to slow down and trying to learn to be attentive to those kind of reminders of God's faithfulness, which are there kind of in the day to day if you pay attention to them. For me, a lot of it has been around acceptance. So like a lot of trying to accept circumstances as they are, trying to let go and to stop trying to hold on or control situations in my own kind of ability or kind of sense of things. I think on Sunday, or recently at least, somebody shared about Philippians 4, which talks about, do not be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. I think about that quite a lot. I think, my sense when it talks about presenting, I kind of think of, holding out my hands, open hands, and sort of lifting them up and, literally almost to present or to give away, to let go of something. And for me, that is a challenge, because I think my natural inclination is when I'm anxious is to kind of hold tight and to try to sort of find a way to control. But I think I'm trying to learn. My challenge has been to live centered in the sense of just letting go and trusting God with the things that I would naturally want to hold on to. But on the flip side of that, trying to learn how to receive what's given as well. So not just accepting things. but also kind of receiving it and receiving life and the circumstances, good and bad, as a gift, or at least receiving God in those things. So yeah, even in the challenges, trying to receive things as a gift. And so that's been something that I've been living with, I think, for the past few years, and it's kind of helped me, I think, in giving my attention to God in the circumstances that I'm in.
Yeah, I can see that. Oh, it's amazing, Ben. I just really love it. I think one is it's immediately grounded. It's like, what does living centered look like? Well, it affects how I live my life. And there's a reality that there's these tensions that I'm living with that can breed anxiety and that desire to hold on or to control. And what I'm realizing is that I'm being invited to just remember God is faithful within it, to trust him, which I love how you then kind of concrete that by saying, actually, what does that look like? What it means that I've got to both slow down, be present, but also just accept that I've got to let go of some things. I can't hold on to them.
Yeah.
And that Philippians 4 passage is just profound of just like, we just got to do that, which seems simple, but it's hard to do. And I love even just you saying how you do it, and is that using your body of saying, actually, I hold up my hands and saying, yep, I'm presenting this to you, God.
Yeah.
But then I love it how you've then switched it and said, but it can't just stay there of me simply presenting the things I'm trying to hold on to or trying to control. Rather, I've also then got to say, as I hold up my hands, I both present, but I also receive.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
That's beautiful. I'm going to receive from you, God, of just what you've got for me in this situation.
Yeah.
And I loved how you framed that. It wasn't like you're going to change it.
Yeah.
It's rather, I'm going to encounter you within it.
That's it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, it's just really beautiful, which to me, that feels amazing. I guess, what is it that's helping you then seek to live that way?
To be honest, Lizzie, a lot of it is I'm married to someone who's pursuing her own relationship with God, and she's a kind of constant encouragement to me within that, just in the way that she does that, just an example she gives me and how she does that. She does things that I wouldn't, like listen to Lectio or listen to worship music. So those things are good for me, and they kind of encourage me, and you know, I benefit from her engaging with that. So, you know, constantly thankful to God for the gift that she is to me. And one of the things that she's been really active at encouraging us in over the past couple of years, it's been about praying together. We've been married nearly 17 years now, and it's never felt particularly natural to pray together. I think for whatever reason, it's just always felt a bit kind of like it doesn't quite flow. But the last couple of years, you know, we've tried to pray together each morning ahead of the day, whatever's going to come in, often with one of the, or both of the boys bundled in the bed somewhere with feet in our faces or whatever. That experience of praying together has both built our relationship with God, but also with each other. It's been a really, really good thing. Other things, like really mindful of like creating habits. A few years ago I read, I think it's the Liturgy of the Ordinary.
Yes, brilliant.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and you know, a lot of that was around how we're shaped by our habits, I think, or that's certainly something I took from it. And so I've kind of thought about that. And the challenge, I think, in my life is it's quite hard to establish routine. I think quite often people talk about the challenge of that when you've got newborns and young children. The reality for carers and, you know, people in different circumstances, I think it kind of continues to be challenging, you know, to find a sort of like a regular, here's my slot where I'm going to do X, Y, and Z without having a demand on me. But some of the things that I've done recently that have helped me, I think, within that have been things like trying to leave a Bible around the house somewhere that's accessible. So I'm more likely to pick it up, you know, than I would otherwise. I found that really helpful. I've memorized a psalm and I'm trying to do that more, but being able to recite a psalm to myself, whether like in the shower, in between things, found that really grounding, really helpful, and really just kind of absorbing truth in a different way at times where, you know, it's not always easy to kind of like, where's my Bible or my commentary or whatever. I can just sort of just, you know, reflect on God and meditate on his word in my own space and time where that comes up. So that's been really helpful.
Yeah.
Some of it, I think, like about creating space. So like sometimes I'm conscious about just saying no to certain things in order to create an opportunity, at least, to say yes to something else. So I think for me, I'm not on WhatsApp, I'm not on social media. It doesn't always mean that I'm therefore constantly on my knees in prayer, but it does, you know, might well be on like BBC News football pages or whatever. But it's kind of, it at least creates that opportunity where kind of there's a space where you can step back and think about what you might want to do with that. I find like reading just generally helps me because I think I engage with the written word, with the Bible as one of my key ways that I engage with God. And so just being in the habit of reading anyway helps that for me, makes it less clicky when I come to opening a physical book and looking at the word. I think increasingly like people help me. So all kinds of people, just seeing the wonder of God expressed in the people I meet. Like I just think it's
really
amazing.
Good.
Like I think people are genuinely amazing. And I don't always find interaction with people that easy, but I do see just increasingly, I think there's the wonder of God in people. So that's people I care for, it's people I work with, people I'm part of church with. Like I really appreciate the privilege of having that interaction with someone who's made in the image of God. It's an amazing thing. So, and the final thing is just around participating. So I think because of my caring responsibilities, it can feel hard to feel fully part of things on a Sunday, and it has done for a number of years, to be honest. There are things that have enabled me to feel like I'm participating, which I've really valued. So prayer and fasting that we do in January, we have done for the last couple of years, has been really, I think even just in my own time, just knowing I'm fasting and I'm praying and I'm doing that with others in the church, and that makes me feel really part of it. I think that's a really helpful thing. I'm part of an amazing small group, and huge love to Andy and Zoe and everyone who's part of that small group. Just absolutely love everybody who's there. That's an amazing thing. I feel very kind of welcomed, and they're very accommodating around my work routines and circumstances and stuff. So yeah, and I find just when I get to kind of communion, is increasingly feels like such an important, like again, just a privilege just to be able to participate with others in meeting with God, and I think that's something that I find helps me.
Ben, man, that is just rich. It's rich. I was frantically scribbling there of all the different things you're saying as I just, loved it from that beginning of actually within the uniqueness of the family situation you're in, of just you and Lizzie then saying, actually, this is the kind of place in which we're going to hold each other and encourage each other and pray. And I just love it. That this is the thing. It's this place. And it's then the habits I'm forming within the life that I've got. That's what struck me. It wasn't like I'm trying to do new things. It's like, how do I build this into the life I have? And I also really love Liturgy of the Ordinary. We'll put it in the show notes just so people can get hold of that. It's a brilliant book. But I just loved how you then said, how can I build this into my life to ensure that I'm connecting with God when I get the moment? So even just like, I just leave a Bible around the house where I know I can get to it. I'm going to memorize something, because then I can keep coming back to it. It isn't dependent on me reading this thing. It's actually, I've got this in me, and therefore I can just keep coming back. I'm not memorizing it to show how much the Bible I know. It's I can digest this, contemplate. I thought it's just brilliant. And then just even you saying, and then I just want to create space, which is always, I've got to say no to some things in order to say yes. And I'm sure some people will be rewinding, going, hey, sorry, did he just say he's not on WhatsApp or social media?
I don't really like interacting with lots of people as well. That's a big thing as well. But yeah.
And they're thinking, is that possible? Could I possibly not be on WhatsApp? It is possible. It is possible. And then I just loved even you saying, like, just my reading in general helps my reading of the Bible. I was just like, I can see that. Just the discipline of reading helps us then when we read God's word. That's really good. And then loving it, if you saying, then it's like actually there's this connection then in how I make the most of my interactions with anyone. Of recognizing there's something of image of God in this person. I'm going to see the wonder and beauty of who God is in this interaction. It's beautiful. And then he's saying actually, rather than, oh man, I don't get to participate as I used to within church life, I'm discovering that the participation just looks different.
Exactly.
And I love that of there's the connection through the small group, but also there's this profound, when I get that, a connection through communion, the connection through moments where we may not be gathered together, but we're doing something together as a church community, whether that's like praying or fasting for 21 days or whatever it might be. It's like, actually, we're doing this together. I may not see you, but I know we're in this.
Exactly.
It's really beautiful. I guess then within all of that that's helping you, what are you discovering about who God is as Father, Son, and Spirit at the moment?
I think there's a couple of things. We've obviously recently been in a series looking at the armour of God. One of the things that I've kind of been reflecting on a little bit is around the thing around the shield of faith. And in Psalm 91, it talks about God's faithfulness being like a shield and a rampart. And so one of the things I think for me has been just understanding it's not the strength of my faith in him that causes me to stand, but the strength of his faithfulness to me. And I think that's something that I've had to lean into a lot, and I feel has given me a lot of encouragement in times where I've felt quite wobbly. And I think the other thing is just around the incarnation. So I just continually feel captivated by this kind of truth that God, who is completely other, bridged the eternal distance between himself and humanity and became like us so that we could be reconciled to him. And just think it's incredible and has these radical implications for how we view others. That kind of real prohibits us from othering others. You know, it can't sort of put someone in a category and say, I can't have anything to do with you, or you're like this and I'm over here and I'm like that. You know, we have to kind of bridge those things. Every person's made in God's image and every person has inherent value. And I think that's brought me a lot of comfort and joy as I reflect on my own differences and otherness, I guess, from others, which I've often been conscious of, and in the context of caring for a child who's profoundly different from others as well. But it's shaped how I view and think of others. So those things have kind of been, you know, reflecting on God and his character and some of the truths that, you know, he's revealed through his word, I think, have embedded in a new way, I think, as I've kind of gone through experiences I have in life more recently, I think.
Oh, it's amazing, Ben. I can see how they interconnect, but they're also quite different of just, there's this practical outworking of I'm just living more and more in just, this shield of faith, that God, you're there as my protector. And then in it of just the wonder and beauty of the incarnation of God, you taking on human flesh. And how, as you're contemplating that, what it's doing is both transforming your view of God and transforming your view of fellow humans, including yourself, and realizing that hey, we've got to understand there's some intrinsic value here of how that then causes us to move towards one another, not away.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, it's just beautiful, absolutely beautiful. I guess that leads us sadly to the last question, which is like, how are you changing? Like, if we were to have met you 3, 6, 12 months ago, how would Ben then look different to Ben now?
Yeah, I know in the past on this podcast, people have talked about this being a hard question. I'd be exactly the same camp on that. We've had conversations in the past, I think, about how you as a young, or how one as a young person might view yourself now and not kind of living under that. But I used to beat myself up quite a bit about this kind of thing. I think my assumption as a young Christian was that, you know, sanctification would be this sort of linear thing where I just kind of go through life feeling like I was becoming more and more like Jesus, or certainly feeling the effects of that. And I think a lot of the time in recent years, I felt like a worse person than I was 10, 20 years ago. But I'm kind of realizing that each day, if you permit a little bit of pretentious imagery here, I think each day is a bit like being on a beach and playing with the waves. And it's like, you know, the waves go out and you take one step forward and the waves come in and you take a couple of steps back, and you feel like that day to day. But if you took the long view, if you took God's view, you'd see that the tide's been going out and that you're like miles further forward than you were at the start. So I think life is a bit like that. And I think, you know, I don't always see it kind of in the moment, day to day, but I think if I took the long view, I'm trying to do that. Ultimately, I'm in a different place to where I was, and ultimately God's kind of got the proper lens on it. So I'm slightly fudging the question, but that probably is where I'm at.
I don't think you're fudging the question at all, Ben. I think that is a beautiful image. Because I think so often we, without knowing it, take the snapshot of how am I feeling today?
Right.
Or and we have this potentially rose-tinted view of who we were. Man, I'm not as radical as I was then.
Yeah.
And I think that view of, oh no, when you take the long view, now I'm going deeper. But it just looks different because the waves look different.
Yeah.
To use your analogy, I'm like, 20 years ago, life probably felt a bit more simpler than it does today.
Yeah.
And yet what you've discovered about God in this, like, enriches them, like what life looks like.
Yeah.
But it can feel like you're being kind of knocked around a bit by waves.
Yeah.
I think that's really beautiful. Oh, as always, I get to this point, no apology. Heart is just full, just hearing just the journey you're on with Jesus. How can you not just be full of joy when you hear someone's journey with Jesus? It's just unbelievably good. I think out of the rich tapestry of everything you've shared with us, and thank you so much for sharing just of your heart and the reality, the thing I'm going to be contemplating over the coming week is just that physical expression of just coming to God with my hands up and saying, here's what I'm presenting. And God, I want to pause enough time to receive.
That's great.
That's the thing I'm going to be doing. Great. How about you, my listening friends? What are you going to be considering out of the beauty and wonder of all that Ben has shared with us? Lastly, I just want to thank you so much for listening. And I want to pray for each and every one of us. I pray we would know more of the wonder of living centered on Jesus this coming week. Amen.
Thanks for joining us on this week's episode of the Living Centered podcast. New episodes are released every Monday, and if you enjoyed this episode, please do like and subscribe on your chosen podcast provider to receive them direct each week. Living Centered is produced by the team at Oasis Church in Birmingham, UK, and you can find out more and get in touch with the team via theoasischurch.com.